Here we are at the closing out the morning now with one more panel. It's another giddy, and it's going to be covering the dark art of UA and particularly how to pick the right tactic for a target demographic. So it's going to be quite targeted, quite laser targeted, quite focused. Should be really useful, insightful. Got a great team of people, including representatives from AppLovin, Traplight Games, Gamejam. Chris Calderon, is he there? I don't know, Digitak and A4G. Knowing Chris Calderon, he'll turn up in 10 minutes. He operates on his own timetable. But yes, Chris Tackerton, okay. Hello, Chris. Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
Hello, all good.
We're all good. We're all good. We're all good. Cool. Emil, of course, of Funday Factory. You're going to be moderating this as you do so well. And I've done so often for us, so I'm really appreciative of that. How are you doing? How's your internet connection hold up today?
Better today. I checked the fuse box last time, a few times a while ago. Power cut in the middle. I think I got 10 minutes into the panel. It only happened once, but I hear about it every single panel.
I know, I'm such a kid.
It keeps on giving, which is really nice. Other than that, I think we should appreciate, Chris, just how color coordinated we are. I'm
loving it.
Dressed up for the occasion.
I'm loving that we're all confident enough to men are confident enough to wear pink. I like that. That's good.
Exactly.
We're all happy enough in the pink. So I'm gonna probably butt out here with my blue. You're all in black, yeah, black and pink. I'm in my blue. I'm completely off color, aren't I? I'm going to leave you guys to take it away. I'll be in the background if you have any issues, and people will be dropping questions in the Q&A. So feel free to refer to that if you need. And yeah, over to you, Emma. I'll let you introduce your panelists.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so I think welcome everyone. First of all, this is a rock star panel, so get excited if you're not already. We've got experts coming in from a wide variety of backgrounds, so it's a great panel. But before we get started, I think it's worth stopping up for a bit and let's getting to learn our panelists a little bit better. So Tony, yeah, woohoo indeed. Tony Deane from AppLovin. Do you want to go first and tell us what you do and where you come from?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, as you said, I work for AppLovin. We're a leading mobile marketing platform that helps developers attract new users and ultimately grow their games. We also have our own internal studios that make games for millions of people around the world. Personally, I lead the BD team for UK, Nordics, MENA, and Southeast Asia, working with developers of all sizes and all categories to really help them scale their games up and maximize the amount of revenue that they're generating.
Excellent, thank you, Tony. And Matej from Traplight.
Yeah, hey guys. So I've been in the industry for like 8 years so far. Helped global launch around 28 games, which is amazing. It was amazing ride. And now I'm currently working with Traplight, where I oversee the UA activities for the Battle Legion and for the upcoming game. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. And Christian Atack from Digitak.
Digitak, my creative genius twin son decided that I'm in the digital world. The surname's Atack, so it became Digitak. I've spent the last 2 decades specializing in mobile game application distribution, monetization, and regulatory compliance. Lived and worked primarily in EMEA for several world-leading organizations, delivering millions of dollars of advertising revenue. Most recently branched out into the Asian markets with a focus on taking European game developers into China. I've forged several multi-million-dollar partnership deals, 2 of which are on here today, working with system integrators, and I enjoy evangelizing on the best toolkits available either to acquire new users or generate as much revenue as possible for my customers and partners. And I'm delighted today to join this distinguished guest of panelists, and hopefully I can share some of my 20 years of learning.
And finally, at the end, we're still waiting for, I think Chris mentioned that Chris Calderon might be coming a little bit late, but we got Omar Tahiri from Tech Champs and A4G.
Yeah. So I'm Omar. A4G is a company that is based in Morocco, and we have been in the gaming UA for the past 10 years. We have started as an ad network and then decided to step up our game and come up with a product that is Top Champs. It is a product that is basically, it's like a gaming arena where people come in and play the games that they like. and the more achievements they make, the more they are rewarded for it. So if they reach like high levels, if there's beats specific bosses, if they are able to reach a certain level really fast. So, and the idea behind this is, is like, that's why it's called like tap champs. And yeah, that's basically where we are right now.
Excellent, thank you, Omar. And finally, my name is Emil. I'm a product manager at Funday Factory. We're a mobile game studio, and we've done real-time multiplayer shooter games for mobile, like Bullet League, which is like a battle royale game. We've also developed HTML5 multiplayer games for Snapchat. I've worked professionally with games for 10 years, if you count a weird indie phase where I did a multiplayer game for the Ouya, a really not fantastic console. Well, it was a fantastic console, but it wasn't marketed super well. So I think this speaks to the challenge that is inherent in all UA, is that sort of the medium, then how you communicate really impacts the types of users you're going to attract. And for those of you who might not remember, the Ouya tried to frame themselves as the PlayStation or Xbox killer, whereas it might have been better positioned as something that could sit just next to those consoles. But I really like Ouya, and I name drop it every time I can. But I know firsthand, also from experience at Funday, we're not a massive team, we're kind of small. So running UA is something that I've dealt with as well, and I'm really eager to learn from this amazing lineup of panelists as well. So I think we should just get started. So in terms of finding out like a targeted user acquisition strategy, audience differ massively. Sort of what audiences have you had experience sort of targeting? So the width, have you had games where you've had to target both, soccer moms as well as like hardcore gamers, or are there any learnings that you can take if you like in our case really experienced targeting hardcore battle royale mobile fans, which is like a small sliver? Is there anything that developers can take with them after having sort of done UA in a specific direction? Tony, do you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I suppose like we're being like an ad network, we're very lucky that I get like exposure to kind of the broadest spectrum, right? I work with like kind of hyper casual game developers all the way down to mid-core game developers. From a demographic perspective, we don't collect that kind of data. Everything that we do is very behavioral based, right? And our partners really work towards ROAS or like retention, which we're talking about today. But yeah, I think from learnings that you can take across from these, the focus and the key metrics that you're going to look at are really the same, right? You want to make sure that your campaigns are profitable, that you're engaging your users with creatives that really speak to the motivations of the players that you're trying to attract, and yeah, that you're using as many of the channels as effectively as possible in order to do that.
And in terms of like the payback windows and stuff that developers should be aware of, how then is like, I'm guessing what I'm getting at is like hyper casual games are known for having like very short payback windows, and the revenue comes back quickly. So what you're saying, Tony, is that developers should be aware of their willingness to wait on the revenue and map out the metrics for the users that they have in their game, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Look, I think like hyper casual, you can get payback in like a week or a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
But they're like the vast majority of games outside of that will have a much longer impact window, right? Stretching from a few months to a couple of years. And the industry is incredibly competitive. So what has happened definitely, like if you look at kind of match 3 games as well, in order to really achieve scale, games have had to push these out as much as possible. So yeah, there's a very wide gamut of earn back windows that people are looking at, and also like ways that people monetize as well via ads or via IAPs or even subscriptions.
So in terms of like, as you say, there's like an endless gamut and the competition is ever growing. There's fierce competition to get the users. In terms of like creative variety and the types of creatives that studios put out, it seems like there's some that do like a ton of experimentation and keep rotating, and like to instill that sort of feel of freshness in the audience. Is that something that you think is for everyone to do, or is that a loser's game if you're like a smaller studio? Is that something, other specific tactics here that are reserved in general for like larger studios versus smaller studios?
So it comes down to bandwidth in certain senses, right? I think what's most important, and the life cycle of a game comes in is very important there as well, right? When you have a new game, it's going to be very important that you're testing out new themes and concepts. But overall, I think what's key is that people have a very formalized testing process, right? And are really experimenting with what the different motivations that the players could have, because you don't want to really miss any low-hanging fruit. It can be the case that you have your top winning creative that is the best one there for like a month or even like up to a year, but you need to be sure that you have really gone through all the different options there in order to make sure that you're not really missing anything, and that what you have created, even if it's painful, that you're not creating any creatives that are, you know, beating your last one. You're taking learnings as well from that and understanding more about your players all along the way.
Is that something, Omar, I saw you nodding there. Is that something that you recognize in your own process? In terms of like massive experimentation and sort of iterating, I guess, on both the creative process and measuring on the KPIs and cohorts coming.
Definitely, I would say at Gamejam, since we are, you know, like I would say like a gateway where we need to do user acquisition for ourselves and then also do it for our clients. So basically, we need to first thing grow our audience and then bring the right audience from that you know, like portion of audience that we have to the right games. So when he said that, for example, you need to really be aware of the kind of monetization that you're making and the way you're monetizing your game, that's one of the most important things that to keep in mind when you're doing UA. When you have a game, you know, that is mainly ad funded and mainly focused on games, it is not the same approach as when you have a game, you know, that is in-app. For example, in Gamejam, we see, I would say, advertising channels as two types. Some that are for, I would say, UA and bringing in new users, and some that are for support that will bring in a specific kind of users that may, you know, like come in, play a game, and maybe uninstall the app. So I believe in what Tony said. What was the most important thing is experimenting with the channels that you believe are fit, and then the testing phase should really not be only about the ROIs. It should be beyond that. It should be how the creatives are done. Sometimes you may have one winning creative. At Gamejam, I believe we had like a few, and we've been running with them for a while on Facebook and a while on Google, and they've been still generating. And at the same time, I believe when you get to a point where you don't know your position, or you don't know which channels to start with, I believe as a small developer or as a small app, we had the chance that we were like already an ad network, so we had the funds. But in our case, we definitely you know would recommend ASO, because many don't see ASO as a UA channel, don't see it, you know, like as an advertising channel or as a growth channel, and only, you know, like as an organic path to evolve in. But it is a pretty good UA channel, but I believe that's one of the best ways. And I think some of the most simple paths to for example, a small developer, since I think many of them are here and trying to learn from people who went through the whole process, is I believe first would be organic. If you and your team can work as best as possible on the stores, especially now with Apple Store, you know, allowing you to test creatives and everything, then go for the widest audience, and then you have the SCAD networks that are your best for start. And then the moment you see that you know your audience, you know what you're doing, start experimenting. And experimentation, you know, like you should not be expecting top ROAS from the start. I think this is I believe the best linear approach that you can go for.
How about you, Matej? Is that the same approach you guys take at Traplight, and sort of basically Omar touched on something really interesting in terms of like the right audience, right? Like I think it's interesting to see like that probably differs from game to game, but
of course. Well, well, where to start? It's I almost fall asleep, guys. Come on, you need to give us a bit more space to discuss everything. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, I worked with like different games in the past, from like casual games targeted for male and female, mid-core and 4X, and even hyper casuals. Well, the most important part of the UA strategy is always about like understanding the target audience you are working with at the moment. So, and identifying the creative that resonates well with that specific audience. For example, for us with the Battle Legion, it's a mid-core game, and we are targeting mostly male audience. And we found out through like very huge creative process and like tested out almost, well, I think we have like 1,000 videos in our catalog of the creatives from the creative standpoint. And we found out one specific concept works really well. And after like half a year of testing, so to the point of like focusing on the ROI with testing, yes and no. We still need to focus on the ROI on the creative level. Well, we want to make money. So so after like very vast creative process, we found out like the mass battles concept worked really well for our target audience, and now we're trying to iterate on it, spin it from different levels and stuff like that.
That makes sense. But I think then, Christian, it sounds like generally speaking, our ROI and ROAS, like hitting that immediately seems to be like the key point. There's of course surrounding metrics that would support that. But do you agree? Is it always like developers should go towards covering their cost first and foremost, and then sort of iterate on top of that? Or do you employ a different process?
I think it's a good point, and I've had a lot of experience working with small devs, large devs, and throughout the whole cycle of the last 2 decades, embracing so much change. And I think that quite a few of the takeaways that I've had, number one, and I take my hat off to any UA managers out there, there's so much exhaustive efforts that go into managing, and as each of the panelists have explained, quite a few of the nuances out there, whether it be searching for that one element of whether it be a creative, and then does that creative work in a particular country? Is there's a new phone that's launched, or do you target to that? But I think, you know, pretty much the get a sense of the overall efforts of marketing effectiveness, and not directly sort of focusing it to absolute revenues. This is about sustainability and to grow. And what I have learned is that in them, and again on this panel here, there are many solutions or tool sets available. Each of us are very open to share learnings and other game developers to help each other in this ecosystem. And from my point, it's really to understand exactly what it is that you want to achieve and how you can do that. And there are so many channels available to be able to get to that.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to just the kind of variety that the game scene has to offer, right? Like it definitely, when we were running creative testing, we didn't do it on thousands of ads. I think we ran around 50 variations of ads, right? But that depends on like how much experience of an experienced team you have sort of helping you to run things. But Matej, I'm actually curious and want to go back to that a little bit. Running thousands of ads, doesn't that require you to have basically a division of PhDs in analytics and data science in order to work out like what's up and down?
Oh, of course. I mean, but that's the main part of the whole UA, and to be able to evaluate everything properly, and even on the creative level, of course, like we have a tool set. I mean, for the data stack, we are using our own ROAS tool built in-house, and then like connecting it through AppLovin, and then well, obviously we also use an Excel sheet for piling up all the 1,000 videos in one, which is amazing for keeping track and like evaluating everything. And that's very powerful thing to do. And it's easy, and we don't need to pay for any other tool which is out there.
But then, Tony, is this something that you see a lot of developers do, or does Matej sort of represent a rare unicorn in the sense that it seems like razor sharp, super focused approach to creatives as part of the UA funnel?
No, it's definitely like incredibly important. I think look, people can have their own BI tools internally. Some people use like other platforms as well for that. On top of that, I think there's been really a transition in the last couple of years towards like network machine learning algorithms, right? And then having them really optimized towards a ROAS or retention metric for you based on the data set of users that they've been able to collect. And that can really help UA teams as well. Because as we talk about like the operational workload, even from like just managing CPI campaigns is huge, like changing a bid in every source and every geo and every campaign is massive. So when what machine learning opens up really is the ability for people to go really global really easily and be sure that they're going to hit their targets, then allows them to actually spread into more channels and experiment with more as well. And even from a UA manager perspective, you see the role growing and them getting more involved with the monetization side and even the product side as well, and having a more holistic view of their business really, which is pretty exciting because, you know, changing bids can get boring after a while.
But so Tony, you're basically, are you saying that the AI ML driven systems, like how do you think that's going to change the role of performance marketers? Like what is this a bomb under the role of performance marketers, or is this simply going to allow performance marketers to like shift their focus? So
I think it allows people to shift their focus really, right? And allows them to be much more expansive in what they do. Like over the last several years, UA has become an ever like greater part of what's important for a game. Like featuring just isn't as important anymore, and everything really has moved over to the UA side. So the responsibilities that have fallen on UA managers are getting greater and greater and greater. And the number of channels that can be effective are like growing as well. So yeah, I think it allows you to really scale up on an even leaner team. And you know, experiment more with creatives as well on top of that.
I think this is a great segue basically. So Tony and Matej here are arguing sort of machine learning, AI-driven systems is the future. Is the future here now? Is this happening right now? Have any of you guys sort of experimented with this in your own games and own productions? Omar, Christian, Matej?
I think when it comes to ML and AI, I think it's really specific on what the product is and how the product is built. In our case, for example, since we're, I would say, like a gateway for people who are looking to grow their gaming audience. How we use ML and AI is basically showing the right games to the right people. When you get in and you have like I don't know, 120 games that you are advertising or trying to promote, you cannot really show the right ones to everyone. So the best way to approach that is definitely ML and AI, and that would definitely, like simplify how we target the right people and target the right users for an advertiser. For example, some of the ways we do that is, for example, let's say there is like this love simulation game that comes in, and we've had maybe 2 or 3 in the past that have performed. So we're like, okay, let's at first, when this game lands in, let's show it to the 100 or the 200 people who have spent the most or who have viewed the most ads. And then when we see that, for example, that model has worked out, we scale it up and until we have some sort of a matching audience for that new game. Same thing, for example, match 3 or word games. We do the same thing for people who, for an audience that basically, like views ads or is spending a lot of time, like in this kind of games, and is fine spending a lot of time playing the games and then watching the ads, or like prompting more the bonus parts that makes you watch ads And that usually leads to better ROIs. So that is, for example, in our case, how ML is used. It's basically, like checking previous behaviors and applying that to metrics that matter to the advertiser before giving that audience to the game. So, for example, this is one of the ways that we use ML and AI.
That makes sense. How about you, Christian? Is that something where you're sort of advising people to jump head first into machine learning, or are you more cautious?
I've never jumped face first. Arms out and a little
probably
support. But I think that it resonates from something that Eric Seufert put out there back in 2009, and it was all about sort of machine learning, algorithmic campaign management, and trying to take away some of the hands-on that the UA managers actually take on. So try and simplify it, multi-channel marketing, automation, testing. One of the first companies that I was actually fortunate to make a headway with was a Danish developer over in our house, and I was blown away at the entrance to their building that was just covered in tiles of different creatives. And there must have been, I think Matej there mentioned that there's 1,000 videos, and I'm fairly convinced that there were over 2,000 different creative formats, even the hat of the runner on Subway Surfers being shaped from one side to the other and wearing a red jumper versus a yellow jumper. And all of this, when you look at your spreadsheets and you get back to where it is that you're trying to get this, there's so much data that it can become overwhelming. So again, a lot of patience and try and just embrace the platforms, or indeed if you are fortunate enough to have your own BI tools to really sort of get that as neat and as tidy as possible, and then duplicate, replicate, and enjoy some success.
Okay, going back to your question about how the AI or machine learning influences the UA life. Well, it made our life easier a year ago or years ago, but I guess it was only for a short period of time, because everything changes so rapidly, and even with the new iOS 14.5, 15, and whatever else, we still, even with the simplified campaign structures and AI-driven campaigns, we still need to be very much on top of our game and monitor closely all the channels. And sometimes it feels like being on the roller coaster. 1 week Google is performing super well, then AppLovin and the AdRoas campaign is scaling up with the new creatives really nicely. Then all of a sudden the Facebook is not working well, lookalikes are performing, and then the AAA campaigns are not. So it's even with the machine learning and AI out there, we still need to monitor everything very closely.
Yes, yeah, so it's never a dull day in the life of performance.
Not at all.
I think
you just mentioned there in terms of just to add in that it really is so important to keep on top of that regulatory compliance. The amount of changes that we've seen over the years, and it can be challenging, but it can also be highly effective in terms of what strategy you do deploy.
Have you seen this, Christian, you were mentioning this in Matej, I think, as well, the roller coaster of new updates that suddenly, you used to have a ton of data, now you don't, suddenly regulatory comes in. Is this generally sort of something that you see as an equalizer, something that allows for more level playing field, or is this giving an unfair advantage to some developers and publishers?
You promised not to be controversial on it.
I know. I'm springing sort of. You don't need to name names. That's fine. You also don't need to answer it. That's totally fine as well. Okay. I guess no one's fighting. That's totally fine. But there is sort of the reduction in data, and some systems like machine learning and AI sort of allows you to set some systems aside and let them run and simmer. I think when we were using some of the automated tools for campaign management, what I felt like as a marketer was sometimes that I would actually not be as keen. I wouldn't have as keen an understanding of the users coming into my game. When for instance, when you set up a campaign with Google Ads, you can feed the machine with like tons of text, tons of images, and tons of videos, and then they'll just like put things together in different ways. And what that actually led to was that I felt like I lost a little bit of sense of who the audience was that was coming in, because I didn't really know what sort of creative they'd been exposed to. Is there at times is there such a thing as too much AI machine learning, where, because I personally felt like I'd lost touch with who was coming into my game. And I don't know, Tony, is that something that you've seen sort of?
So I suppose it's difficult, right? You're kind of like ceding control in some ways, definitely.
Yeah.
But we on our back end, we introduced like our machine learning like system Axon like around last year. And I think this year versus last year, our partners are spending on average like 280% more on the platform. So the scale that's been like that they've been able to achieve has been massive. And they also like target their campaigns specifically towards like ROAS. Like Matej was saying, you put in like just a specific ROAS goal, and then the system will hit it. So yeah, I think look, losing control for all of us is always going to be a little bit scary, right? But there's massive benefits to it as well. I don't think it's something that's going to go away, right? As long as there are certain people that are doing it, then there's going to be like a lot of competitive advantages to utilizing those systems. But yeah, I think like, look, we just kind of have to understand our users and the ones that we have inside of our games for what they are, right? Simply because like someone is able to find users that you might not have been able to find yourself, that are really love your game and like are really into it. That's something that's like actually an exciting thing as well, even though it is scary in some ways too.
Yeah, I think that, so sort of with the newfound, with sort of the advent of AI and machine learning, and like the occasional times where, as Matej mentioned, the roller coaster, like sometimes it's really tough and you don't have any time to do anything else but just like hyper focus on one project or one specific problem. But in the valleys of that, like when you feel like there's time, are you guys spending any time like exploring other like non-traditional channels, and do they even work? Like for instance, like influencer marketing, or putting effort into community management and turning players into advocates. Is that something that you've seen sort of work? Omar, let's start with you.
I think the way ML and AI is going currently, I believe it's the best way we can as Tony said, we can keep expecting a superhero role from an UA manager. Currently, you know, like in many small game developer, you know, like structures, a UA manager is not only, you know, like on Facebook, or not only on AppLovin, or not only on Google, but is supposed, you know, like to juggle and play around with all of them. And I believe ML and AI can actually allow UA manager to monitor and like just be that link between the company and the networks who are doing the growth for the developer. And I believe at some point we will reach a situation where a UA manager will just be a very focused decision maker, where all he has to do, you know, is be like, okay, so this campaign, you know, has potentially developed to 3 lookalikes and 10 different creatives, and let me see the best way I can either shut this one down, get this one up.
But I think more in terms of like the key thing here is like in terms of like non-traditional channels, and have you sort of experimented with running, for instance, like influencer marketing campaigns in the past?
I think, yeah, I derailed off the question. For influencer marketing, I would say as someone who has always been, you know, like into performance, either back in the ad network days or now in Tapchamps. For example, influencer marketing or blog posts, or, you know, like potential gaming website takeovers, As a performance manager, I've never been able to get a good return on ad spend out of those.
How about the rest of you? Have any of you sort of tested out influence marketing, or is that sort of like a dead horse that I should stop beating?
Well, influence marketing never worked out too well for me, but it doesn't mean it can't work for other games. It depends very much on the game you have, and if the game is, let's say, PvP, you can watch tons of videos online, and it's actually you are enjoying it while watching it. Makes sense. I want to look at like YouTubers playing Battle Legion. Okay, fine. But then of course we also need to try and find the proper influencers to actually match our audience as well. So I'm still trying to find the way how it can work. So definitely there are ways. So just slowly getting there. And in terms of the community management, we're actually doing YouTube streams every week. And we have also a Discord channel and doing multiple activities on the social media. So I do believe in the community building, and that's really important for the game like we have.
And actually, I think maybe there's something in terms of mid-core games, because one of our games, which was like this mid-core battle royale, we also set up a Discord server. I've never seen like such concise, well-structured bug reports from players. Like, if you manage to like pull your players into like a shared space where they can be excited about a game and feel like they can have a one-to-one communication channel with you as the developer, they will stay up late. They will work tirelessly to build up like a really coherent bug report. Sometimes like besting what we were able to actually buy in like external QA houses. So I think definitely sort of beating the drum for communities when it makes sense for your game is super worthwhile. How about you, Christian? Have you sort of tested out, or any of the companies you've advised sort of tested out either like communities or influencer marketing?
So not personally, but again, I work with around 80% of game developers out there, and each one have got different strategies for deployment. But it comes down to, again, focusing on marketing. I think you hit the nail on the head there about how important is it to listen to your clients, and any touch point channels that you can integrate. And we're all working very differently. Whether it be adding a Discord channel, whether it be going back to the basics on the reviews, or whether it be adding a support email or a WhatsApp channel. People are really eager to help you understand what they're experiencing in the game. And it's so important to listen to that. And so I've seen a lot of hype a few years ago around influencer marketing, and I was quite excited about that. It opens up a new channel to employ people, and I'm all embracing in sort of new talents coming in. And from a younger perspective, it's really important to understand what it is that they're using, how it is that they're using, and what that chain of communication is all about. So for me, I think just like having a celebrity or having somebody like on a YouTube channel, somebody can make a real difference. And it's just down to how you onboard that, and if you can onboard that into your marketing strategy. But any awareness, any coverage, any promotion activity is only going to have a benefit in both ways.
Christian, if I can sort of stick with you for a bit, you also mentioned some regulation coming in, sort of ever-changing landscape in terms of like what's happening on mobile. In terms of like the current legal battle with like Apple and Epic, and what seems, for me at least, like super uninformed, it seems like there's a shimmer of light on the horizon, and that we might be able to take in like external payment structures. In general, sort of it feels like there's openings in terms of breaking up the current landscape of mobile app acquisition and channels, right? So gotta have Arcade as sort of an additional gated community within an already gated community, but then you also have other platforms sort of rumored to come in, like Netflix and other sort of streaming platforms who seem to be standing outside the gates and like shouting, "Let me in." Is there something where you feel like, how do you envision, how do you feel like the industry's gonna, or the market for app stores are gonna look like a year from now? And I know it's like, it's that time of the panel where we have to talk about the future. So sorry, but not sorry.
embrace the future, and history repeats itself. And the beauty of this industry is that it's not in its infancy. It's been around for over 2 decades. The walled garden, where you had only to purchase something directly from the mobile operator without actually ever getting anything on the handset. The compliance there was that you had to buy it from the mobile operator. Enter 2007, Apple completely decimated the mobile operator structure of that payment cycle. I think that we're about 11 years in now. So yeah, things are going to change, and it's an ecosystem that's generating hundreds of billions of dollars. It is only going to grow, and it will change, it will develop. But again, with development, change becomes opportunity, and it's what we do with that opportunity and how we bring that into the cycle, all for encouraging different ways of utilizing the structures, and different payments in different countries, or alternative payments, less payments back to the walled garden, and more revenue for the developers.
Do the rest of you agree? Like it's kind of hard to not agree to, like, it's a very fire and brimstone speech, like embrace the change and history repeats itself. I'm kind of riled up now. Feels like you agree. So is there any sort of exciting new tech that sort of the people in the like the participants should be aware of, like something that personally excites you about something that's coming, or something that you think might be happening, sort of staying within the future track, like new channels, new formats? Again, like Christian has sort of mentioned, you mentioned, Christian, sort of rules and regulations, but only in sort of the sinister broad sense. So maybe there's something where you feel like this actually presents an opportunity to developers. Is there something where, like, some new tech coming that you're excited about?
I think Omar was going to answer that one.
Yeah. So I think in the near future, and how we are approaching, like, monetization and revenue for any gaming developers, I'm seeing more and more, like, gaming developers looking at their own ecosystem and revenue, and their own ecosystem and like own currency. We have, for example, I would say Candy Crush or Supercell, and they all have, let's say, those currencies in game. But the only way for them to bring in users is to go through the two big giants, and for those two giants, like, to approve of that method of advertising. But what I'm seeing now is that there is this new generation of users, and this potential new generation of like, game developers, as I'm sure you all heard of it. For example, Axie Infinity, or a few other, like, top-notch play to earn game developers, who are, like, disrupting the approach of like, just going through. Did someone leave the call? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we lost Matej.
Yeah, of going through Apple and Google for their own revenues, and found new ways, like, to generate revenue, either through their own tokens, or through their own monetization routes. And I'm seeing more and more, like, looking to do that, since, I mean, play to earn is already an attractive thing, and getting, like, for the company to make money out of that is a totally new approach to make revenue. Because I think now we have two ways. It's like in-app purchases and ads. And if gaming developers can break away from that model, they can definitely break away from Apple and Google in some sort of way. So I think that's one of those potential new ways we can see some gaming developers think of, and maybe rethink the way they develop their games, the way they approach their revenue streams. I think that's my 2 cents on maybe this breaking away from these walled gardens.
Yeah, sort of play to earn, sort of being something that's going to break down some walls. It sounds like, I think that's an exciting future. How about you, Tony? What's going to happen in the next 2 years? Tell us.
Oh God. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a psychic. But I don't know. I think there will probably be like an awful lot of changes. There always is. Whether it comes in like policy changes or like scan in the last has only rolled out this year, right? And we've seen like advertisers have really been able to change how they operate very quickly. So like the initial Ragnarok that it was supposed to be hasn't really come to fruition so far. And I think that speaks incredibly well of the industry as a whole. Like it'll get boring if nothing changed, guys. And we'd have nothing to talk about at things like this. But yeah, no, I think it's like incredibly exciting. It's one of the things that I do really like about this industry, is that there's always something new, and we've always proven to be like incredibly intelligent in how we approach any changes and incredibly resilient as well. But yeah, definitely excited about Play to Earn as well. I think that'll be cool.
All right, and with Matej out, I guess like he felt like this was too much of a controversial subject to touch upon. I think Christan, Atack, I think Chris, you're coming in to tell us that we're running out of time, right?
I was coming to say we're getting near the end. I just wanted to say if you've been checking any of the questions in the Q&As, a few different ones coming.
Yeah. Do we have time?
Yeah, you've covered a lot of them. There was one very specific one from Ali Sharpersand.
But wait, just because I wanna give Chris a chance to just touch upon the regulation in a non-sinister broad sense, and maybe if there's any.
I don't want to cut off Chris. I don't want to cut Chris's time.
No, exactly. No one wants
to do that. So I'll let him. I'll sit quietly.
Yeah,
I've only got one small thing to add on to that, and again, it comes with the challenges of compliance. But when a country restricts users from playing games for a certain amount of time, that's going to have an impact on Play to Earn. I can't see that that's going to happen in the Western world. But yeah, I'm all embracing, if you can play the games and earn some additional currency to spend in another game, or achieve certain points that you can again change or barter, for example. It's exciting times, and any restrictions on that, I think could be challenging.
It's a really, really relevant point to bring up. Thank you, Chris. So the question you wanted to call out in the audience, which one was it? It was from Ali Shabasand?
That's the one. Yeah, no, it just seemed very specific. Yeah. I don't know the answer, so I don't know if you do either. But
I guess I can, guys, help us. Tony, Christian, Omar, help me, because I'm in over my head here. So Ali is asking, can you elaborate a little bit on ROI on building up the data infrastructure? How wild do you suggest to be spending on it, both from money and time? The first time, just like first attempts to build an MVP, how should it take from the investment, data pipeline, steps, analytics? So I'm guessing Ali here is referring to like building and owning your own BI stack, and sort of how to get started and where to go from, like what the starting point should be. Who, any takers?
Sure, I'll take this one. I would say investing on your data infrastructure could definitely be one of the biggest and most positive ROIs you can get as a gaming developer or as a platform developer. It really depends on what you're working on, because there's no other platform that's going to give you as much data as what you collect yourself. Currently now with the whole ATT thing going on, and Play Store working on that, developing on your own, like BI structure, knowing your users, knowing where they're from, knowing their behaviors, knowing what each one is doing, like through the user journey, is definitely what's going to allow you, to go back potentially to traditional ways of growing those users, of re-engaging them, instead of always depending on a Facebook or something for retargeting. You can do that via CRM, via emailing, via tons of different ways if you have your own data. But I see that many UA managers are fine, like with what's given to them on Facebook or on a Google, create a lookalike, and that's my data. I will reuse it. So yeah, your data is the most valuable thing you have, and there's no reason for you to not invest there.
Right.
I think that anyone has anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, I suppose. Yeah, I think that you can get a lot of data still from platforms, right? So if you're an indie studio working on their first game, you really want to make sure that you have something that's scalable and like a product that actually is worth investing in first before you really build out the data infrastructure to really understand how to maximize UA. Like make sure that you first are working with networks, that you have an MMP, and that you're doing all of the very simple things first well, and utilizing all the data that you have before investing into deep diving into anything really. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say like just having gone through that journey of building our own BI stack, starting just with something as simple as ensuring that the data aligns between just two different platforms is a nightmare. So get that sorted first. And if you feel like you're confident working out why day one retention varies by 4 percentage points from say AppsFlyer to Firebase, then once you understand why that's happening, then you're probably a little bit better suited to go down the path of building your own. It's a scary journey, Jesus. Chris, what does the time say, Mr. Clockman?
The clock has rung. I think we started about 5 minutes late, and we're finishing 5 minutes late. So I think on that note, I'm going to probably say a huge thank you to all of you. And I do feel I should have gone and changed. I was thinking about it. Should I go and change into black? I didn't do it. I apologize. It would have been good. I'm not in your band. I'm not in the what is the coolest UA boy band in the industry. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Omar, and thank you, Emil, for sorry, loads of people now asking me. Loads of pop-ups. I can't see anything now. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of the show and the afternoon. Thanks for hosting, Emil. And yes, thank you.